What's up? Welcome to the Welcome to the Blueprint. I'm Joe. My co-host Ant, he ain't feeling well today, so I'm gonna have to hold it down solo. Ant, get better, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Feel better, Ant.
Yeah. But I'm here with my special guest today, Chuck Smith,
Glad to be here.
gentleman, scholar, educator. What else?
Poet,
Poet,
fisherman,
fisherman,
country boy.
Country boy. Okay.
that's enough.
All right. Well, today we're gonna talk about education. Oh, I also want to talk to you about your podcast too.
Oh, for sure.
But we'll get in that a little bit later. But
sure.
First, I want to talk about education. And how long you been an educator?
Man, I've been teaching since '98, so this is my 23rd year.
Okay. When I decided to have you on, what was interesting to me when I was just researching black males in particular in education, I found it interesting that it's only 2% of educators as black males. I was like, man. So I took a kind of because I also asked you, I took an informal poll, and majority of people that I maybe asked, like I say, it's on my own personal poll. I think I maybe asked about 25 people, just say it was coming in and out the shop. And I think about the average that I got was probably 3. And the question was, from kindergarten through 12th grade, how many black male teachers did you have?
Right.
You know what I mean? Some, were like, I ain't have any.
That's right.
Some were like, well, I didn't have my first one until I got to high school. But on average, it was roughly about 3
Right.
that most people had. Now, Ant, for some reason, he said he had like 15. I don't know. And then another guy was like 10.
Wow.
So Ant was did most of his school in Detroit, which is predominantly black.
Right.
But it was a few other people from Detroit. He was still around 3 or 4. This other guy I think was from Philly. He had 10, I think. But I think he don't really get most of his till he got here. But anyway, so why is it that you think that? And I think it's from my personal perspective. I think maybe that education is not a route that most black males see themselves in, that they decide not to pursue. You think that's fair?
Well, in thinking about that, I think about, for instance, when I was growing up, and I can't tell you where this comes from, I thought of nurses being women only.
Right.
And I think for a long time, there's a concept of teachers are women.
Okay.
Because most of my teachers coming up were women.
Right.
So it was impressed upon me kind of early that only women teach. Only women are nurses, which we know isn't true.
Right.
I think that may have a lot to do with it as far as just, it being seen as a woman-dominated profession as opposed to something that men do also. I guess that's a little outdated.
Right.
But I think that's part of it. And again, I don't know, man. I think to be a teacher as well, man, to be a good teacher, you got to be willing to be vulnerable and transparent, with
Right.
students. And I don't know if vulnerability and transparency is popular among a lot of men either.
Right.
So they choose more, quote unquote, masculine,
Right.
what's considered to be masculine professions,
Right.
whether that's,
Yeah.
whatever.
And when I also, it's funny that you mentioned that because I also asked, well, out of that, whatever your number was, how many of those were coaches?
Right.
Then it decreased even more. If you take the coaches out of the
Oh, for sure.
number, then it would decrease even more because I had maybe, let me think, as far as black males, I think maybe 3. I think that I actually had,
Right.
but assistant principal was a black male, and then we had another administrator that was I forgot what his title was, but he was a black male. And then I had a coach that taught driver's ed, and I had a biology teacher, Mr. Rice, and I think that was it. So there were other Oh, I had a math teacher, Miss Davis. So I probably had maybe 3 or 4.
These are men.
Men.
Okay.
Right. But out of that 3 or 4, 2 of them, coached in some
Right.
capacity. You know what I mean? So but I remember, some teachers you have to really think like, dang, when I was in this grade, who was my teacher? I will say that the influence was there that I'd never forget them because they were relatable to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? They were somebody that I could see, I could see something in them in myself.
Right.
And when I was also researching, I saw that I can't remember what the number was as far as in the likelihood, but they said that if a student had a black male teacher, and it wasn't just in high school, just anywhere along their journey, if they had a black male teacher, right. They were, I forgot how many more times to graduate high school, but it was a drastic difference between if they did, whether they would. And I found it interesting, like, I could see if it was maybe in high school, but they were just like at any point, right. If they had a black male teacher.
I probably need to investigate that because my first teaching assignment was at Stone Middle School in Huntsville, Alabama, which is predominantly black.
Right.
And pretty much if there is an inner city of Huntsville, that's where it was in an inner city part of Huntsville. And I'm gonna survey a lot of my kids that I had and just see. I think most of them have graduated.
Right.
And I had them 7th, 8th grade science
right.
at Stone, and that was my favorite teaching assignment because of that demographic. They considered the bad kids in the city, but just like everybody else's kids, man, equally as smart, equally as loving, but they were just real. Right. They wanted transparency. They wanted to know you cared about them and weren't afraid of them, and they just like everybody else's kids, but they really sniff out fakeness really quick. So
right.
And so I want to talk to them and just see about how many throughout those few classes that I did teach there over the course of 4 years. I think a majority of them have graduated. I'm still in touch with many of them who are like early, mid-30s now.
Dang.
And so
you're known up there, too.
Yeah, I know, man. So check this out. So coming up myself, I had my middle school. I had no black teachers, male at all, or female, really, in elementary school.
Right.
Middle school, my principal was a black man.
Okay.
And then in high school, my dad taught agribusiness, agri-science. So I took his class. We had a vocational high school.
Oh, okay.
So we taught agri-science, welding, farming.
Right.
The whole outdoor, all the vocational aspects of teaching there. So my dad was the only black teacher I ever had.
Okay, so
male, and
right.
Middle school, high school.
Yeah. Dang. So for those that don't know, in case we have some younger people watching, what's a vocational school?
So vocational high school is where you can take courses like home economics. You can take agri-science, agribusiness, where they teach you about, like I said, farming, welding, wiring, electricity. It really teaches you a vocation, skilled vocation, as opposed to just getting you ready for college.
Right.
You could probably leave there and go right out and get you a certification in welding and start working out of high school and make, top dollar. So it's really like a vocational high school, which not many of them left, I don't believe.
No.
Really prepared you with a skill set coming out of high school to go right into the workforce.
Why you think it's not as many schools as it used to be as far as vocational schools?
Well, I think it's just down to lack of funding. Now, why you would cut funding for such skilled labor preparation, that's a whole other topic. But I think a lack of funding, a lot of those programs have gone away.
Yeah.
And they don't have them.
My whole thing with education is I think that it needs to be completely revamped.
Absolutely.
Because it never sat right with me that, okay, for certain, say for law.
Right.
If I'm coming out of high school, why can't I go right into law school? Why do I have to take 4 years of, sometimes you take a bunch of classes you really don't even need.
Definitely.
To fit whatever the curriculum is. Mm-hmm. Or, if I want to go into medicine, why can't I just go straight into medicine?
Right.
You know what I mean? And now I was talking about vocation. You had to go do your 4 years of high school, and then if you want to get a trade, then you had to go another 2 years. Whereas you could get part of that when we were coming along. You get
Right.
part of that in high school.
For sure.
Right, right.
But those colleges wouldn't make nearly as much money, Joe, if you went straight
So
to
it's
the
a money
professional
grab.
school. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
They put you through that 4 years of biology. You might want to be an attorney, but you got to go through general biology.
Right.
You got to have history class, and you got to
Yeah.
have a foreign language, which ain't bad, but like you said, a lot of it is just to keep you there in a curriculum for
So
at
do you
least
think?
a set number
So
of
do you
years.
think the standardized test is the same way?
I think so.
Because me, if you once you get a college degree, you've
Right.
already proven yourself that you can learn.
Right.
So why do I have to take a LSAT or MCAT or GRE or to move on to another level?
Right. I just think it's another hoop, man. Just to,
Right.
and I'm honest. I tell my students all the time, look, I'm all for college. I've been to college, 10 years of college. You know, a couple of degrees or whatnot. And you don't have to go to college to be successful.
Right.
I don't knock college,
But it's not
to-
the only way.
It is. It's definitely not the only way. I don't
Yeah.
think it's the best way. Honestly, it prepares you to be an employee,
Right.
but not really necessarily an entrepreneur. Or
Right.
you know, you can come out and get a skill in welding and have your own welding business off the bat.
Yeah.
You're an
see,
entrepreneur.
see, when I was coming along, like your auto body, your welding, your plumbing, your
HVAC.
HVAC, all that, the students that maybe didn't do as well
Right.
or had a discipline problem or whatever, they were still those students.
I was gonna say that's a stigma.
Right. They were still
Right.
those students toward the trade school, and if you
Right.
had a certain GPA or
It's almost like a black eye. Like this is for unsuccessful people.
right.
You
right.
you get you a skill and just go to the
Right.
side. Successful folks go to college, and
Right.
it's really a mind.
But the time that I had to call somebody to my house, dude came. It was on the weekend. He
Right.
pulled up with his girlfriend in the car. I needed a plumber. He hopped on top of the roof with the snake, hit the main line, hopped down. It happened just as quick as I'm telling you right now. He was
Right.
there maybe 10 minutes,
Grip.
$70.
Right.
I was like, man, I'm in the wrong.
Man.
Right. When we was coming up, it was college, you get you a job, suit and tie.
Right.
I was like, man, the one with, if you got a patch with your name on it,
Right.
you the one getting paid.
Right.
You
But
know
we
what
got
I
to get
mean?
back to our. We talked about our fathers before, man. That
Right.
generation.
Right.
You know, my dad will be 79, Lord willing, in December this year. And their generation, man, they had to get that education, and they had to put on
Right.
that. They had to look their best at all times because
Right.
of how they're viewed as black men.
Right.
And I understand they impressed upon us, man. You know, dress yourself up, get your degree, get you a good paying job, get you a pension,
Right.
work, retire. And I understand where they're coming from. But
Yeah.
you know, in our day and age, times have changed to where we see now that, you know, as you said, you can just get a skill, get you a trade skill, and get your own going and be just as successful. Because I know for a fact, man, like I said, I've been teaching 23 years, but I know for a fact plumbers make more than I make.
Right.
Electricians make way more than I make.
Yeah.
And they work for themselves if they want to as well. So
Yeah.
I admire and I salute and I
Is
definitely.
is the pay another thing that people shy away from teaching? Not just black males, but just people in general.
You know what? If it's in you to teach, I don't think so.
Okay.
But if you're looking for a salary,
Right.
it's gonna be you won't even look twice.
Right.
It's just like you got to feel, you know.
But is it that bad though?
It's not that bad when you
I
consider.
mean, in the beginning, because like all the teachers that I know coming up,
right,
they seemed like they really wasn't. By the time they got on up in age,
Right.
it seemed like they were financially, from the outside looking in, they seemed
Right.
like they were straight.
it's definitely not like a startup business where you don't get paid for.
Right.
I mean, it's not something that you get rich doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you factor in the schedule, the time you have off,
Right.
pay in the summer with no classes, it feels like more than you make.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's a living wage for sure. I mean, you
Right.
ain't gonna be at the poverty line, I don't guess necessarily.
Right.
But it's definitely not. Salary is not a draw
Yeah.
for sure for education.
Right.
As I said, my initial thought when I went to college was I wanted to go into medical field. You know, I wanted to go to med school, not because I had a desire to be a doctor, but I like the sciences and I like people.
Right.
And so I figured, well, if I like biology, I might as well just go into med school. But that was the road for me. I tried to go, a couple of years, but I just ended up finding out that for me, education allowed me to fulfill that love for people that I had and still enjoy the sciences as well.
Right.
So what I misunderstood as a desire to go to med school was really just my desire to serve and interact with people, and
Right.
teaching allows me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has allowed me to do that.
Yeah. What is, so you get the fulfillment of it, obviously, because
Right.
you've been doing it 20-something years. What are some of the cons of it that you don't necessarily don't like, or are there any for you?
I don't know if I would call them cons, but things that can be frustrating, I would say, or is, there's always kids that you wish you could take on with you and just make your own kid.
Right.
That you feel like you could help if you could just.
Right.
And you can't take every kid home. You can't take any kids home with you. You can't adopt them necessarily, but.
Right.
So for me, the frustration can be like not being able to reach a kid that needs some structure or needs some extra guidance outside of what you can give them at school.
Right.
And, I always had the mindset, man. I realized early on that, for a lot of kids, man, school is the best part of the day for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of changed the way I looked at kids and interacted with them. So I don't want to do anything ever to bring extra stress to their lives at school, because this may be the only time they get a chance to relax.
Right.
Or sometimes even rest. I had a kid, I may never forget, I had a kid in my class, and this was back I taught middle school. He would sleep every day in my class, man. And, my ego wanted to say, I'm disrespected. I feel, so I had to pull him out to the side and say, bro, why you sleep in my class every day? The kid would make A's and B's, though, regardless, even sleeping. And he just told me, she said, Mr. Smith, man, my mom has company every night.
Oh, okay.
And I don't get to sleep at night because
Yeah.
they always keeping up, whatever. You
Right.
get to listen to that all night. So I should let the man sleep in class, man. Like,
Right.
he was passed. It ain't like, so why, allow my ego to get in the way and make him wake up and have an attitude with him and send him to detention because he's sleeping every day when I know he don't get the rest at home.
Right. Right.
So just things like that can be very frustrating, man. But as far as cons go, I honestly can't think of any cons, man. I said the time off, holidays.
Yeah.
It's always been like a family environment for me with working with colleagues, like it becomes like family. And just the everyday interaction with kids, man, and new kids each year, it's just never a dull moment, honestly. So I can't think of any cons personally, if I'm honest.
Oh, you a good teacher then.
I guess.
You a good teacher.
Glory
You
to
can't
God.
think of no cons.
I can't
I
think
probably
of no
taught
cons.
some other teachers there.
I need to do something else, man.
Yeah.
I honestly,
Well, how many teachers do you see that you think to yourself, man, this ain't for you? Or how many have you seen throughout the years?
Man, I would say throughout the years, I would say 10% or less.
Oh, so not that many.
No, because
That's
I mean,
good.
if you've been in there for years, 9 times out of 10, it's what you call to do.
Right.
We've all probably had teachers who are not good teachers in the sense of knowing a subject and being able to explain it to somebody else is two different things.
Right.
And so, you got those teachers, you heard those teachers that maybe just give assignments and sit back and drink coffee and read the paper all class,
Right.
or show you a bunch of movies all the time. That ain't, that ain't what it's about, man. You have to, for me, first and foremost, man, it's like I tell my kids each year, I care about you as people first. So if I ask how you doing, I want to know how you doing first. We can catch biology up later.
Right.
If you ain't good, let's talk about what ain't good with you. We catch up on lesson later. And so I've seen a few teachers here and there that just don't have a heart for people. Kind of like people that want to say, "Oh, I want to be a nurse," but you don't really like people though.
Right.
You can't deal with urine.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need to be a nurse. You're going to see that every day. Like, you don't like overweight people, then you don't need to be a nurse. Like,
Right.
you're going to see all kind of people. You need to have a heart for it, a calling for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's pretty obvious when somebody doesn't have a calling for it, it comes off in the energy and their performance, how they interact, how they, So, but I would say a small percentage, because usually the ones who aren't called to do it, they don't last long. They don't hang around long. They end up either getting fired or burning out early and just not be able to handle the day in and day out
Right.
of the profession.
So, obviously, I guess you were trained, so to speak. You went to school to be a teacher, and I'm
Right.
sure they taught you different, I don't know, curriculum, technique, lesson plans, and all that other type stuff. But is there anything that you can think of that you experienced when you were in school and you became a teacher, you were like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
Is it anything in particular?
That I learned? That I'm not anything that I learned previously that's how I'm not gonna do in the classroom?
Yeah.
And that's
Or
it?
just say you had a teacher that did XYZ or that you didn't
Right.
appreciate and you like, I'd never do that again.
Man, look.
Like for me, for instance, when I think about certain teachers that I had, it was teachers that to me took their class a little bit too serious in the aspect of, look, I don't want to be in this class. I'm sure you don't want me in this class, but I got to take it because it's required, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm going to give my all in the class, but this class is not the end all be all out of my entire career, entire career. But you got some people that act like their class is like, I guess what I'm saying, some teachers that I've had experience with intentionally make their class hard.
I was gonna say
just for no reason.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, man, let people move on from this. You know what I mean?
But they take pride in everybody getting D's and ain't nobody ever got an A in my class.
Right. You have some people like that. Oh, don't nobody get higher than a C in this class. It's like,
right. What does that say about you then?
Exactly.
Because everybody ain't a C student.
Right.
You the common denominator. So what does that say about you as a teacher, really? But I pride myself in things I didn't like as a teacher or as a student. I hate being bored to death in class, man. Don't read to me. Don't give a bunch of busy work. And I appreciated teachers who were able to say, you know what, man, I don't know everything.
Right.
I'm going to explain to you based on how I understand this. But if you can come to me with a different perspective and we can argue about it and debate about it, let's do that. And that's how learning happens. And that's how I teach now.
See, that's why you a good teacher.
I don't know
See,
nothing,
other teachers
man.
would be like, you do it my way or that's it.
Right.
Right.
You
Say for instance, like I remember, I'm sure you had them too. Like I really never did good in math. You know what I mean? And they would always be like, "Oh, well, this, it's just like the whatever. All you gotta do is this and this and this." And I'm like, it's not that I'm not smart.
Right.
I'm not getting it because you're not teaching it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, if I do a different formula and come up with the same answer, it's still wrong because I didn't do it the way that you told me to do it.
Right.
But the answer is still the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now I can see if like some teachers want you to show the work, and you just write the answer and then you can't explain how you got it. I get that.
Right.
But if I'm showing you the way that I did it, but you want to say, "No, that's wrong. You got to do it." Like, no.
Right.
Everybody don't learn the same way. You know what I mean? That's what I disliked about, I like, and my homeboy, Naja was a math teacher for years, right? So whenever my daughter would have an issue, I get him on the phone. He walked me. I was like, man, if I would have had you in school,
right,
I might have went on to do something different. You know what I mean? But all my teachers was like, what's they always say? It's just like the practice problem. I was like, I can do that one.
Right.
That one easy.
Right.
These are not just like the practice problem.
Absolutely not. Right.
Yeah. So being a black male in a school that is predominantly white, have you ever found that whenever, or just a male, I'm not going to say a black male, whenever a student in another classroom is acting up, did they get you to talk to them or?
That has happened before.
Right.
Not in recent times.
Right.
But definitely.
And how'd you feel when they did it?
You know what? Honestly, man, I would put myself out there like that. Because I used to see a pattern where, a lot of the black, particularly male kids, they go straight to the suspension.
Oh,
they
okay.
straight out of school for 2 or 3 days,
Yeah.
as opposed to, and what I found, man, 9 times out of 10, man, when you pull that kid away from all the hype and all the kids looking at him, and when you get them away from all the attention, that's when they can say, man, I'm just struggling, Mr. Smith, with X, Y, and Z, or my dad and mom ain't getting along, or
right. Nobody took the time to
just to let him talk without having to keep his chest out and act like ain't nothing wrong.
Right.
And so, I used to put myself out there like, look, if you have an issue with any of these kids, let me talk to them before you kick them out of school or have them sitting at home doing nothing, out on the street doing nothing. So I would put myself out for that, man, just because I don't know. As I said, we kind of spoke a little bit off camera about how you can relate to somebody on a level,
Right.
maybe because they look like you or whatever, or they can tell you can kind of tell where they come from and what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. It helps them be more open, and you can get to the root of a lot of issues just by being able to relate to somebody who looks like you.
Right.
In a lot of cases, if we're honest about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, it didn't offend me at all though, because I mean, I as I said, to me, if a teacher would take time to do that, I think that shows that they care enough to say, well, I'm gonna take this step before I snap.
Instead of going to full.
Instead of going to full, put them out or suspend them or
Yeah.
just get out of my class or whatever. So
Yeah.
I always make myself, avail myself to be available if needed for that kind of.
Man, you're a good
intervention.
teacher. I guess I had good teachers. Probably would have been the same but I guess you just never realize it. The work that some of them put in, because you just look at it as another class.
Right.
Yeah. But I remember, the ones that like I say, they were memorable because of that, because they would pull you to the side
Right.
and kind of check you on, and certain things they may let you get a little bit, further,
Right. And let's be real. I can say things to a young black male that a white man can't say.
Right.
Or a white female can't say.
Right. Yeah.
Because we can just relate that way. And he
Right.
know I'm coming from a place of relation as opposed to, is this person on some prejudice or is this person being
Right.
racist?
Yeah.
So in some cases, I can reach somebody who looks like me.
Yeah.
I hate to make it about color, but this is what America's
Right.
rooted in. So, but yeah, I think when there's some relation there, where you can relate to the person you're talking to, sometimes you can reach where other people can't reach.
Right.
So I take pride in that.
Man, you need to start your own school, Chuck.
Man, I talked about that before, man.
Yeah.
I have thought about that.
We need to do a GoFundMe.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get that going. Get that GoFundMe going.
Huh? How
that
much
going.
money is it gonna take?
I don't know. We do about 1.4.
Can we start at just one grade? You can't open up school with just one grade.
Yeah, I
can
don't
you?
believe so. I don't believe so. I ain't know the logistics,
We
man.
have the most disciplined and sharpest third grade
Boy,
on earth.
right. So yeah, but I have thought about that, man.
But for school, so if you were to start a school, what would be your options? You could do like, I guess it's just like middle. I mean, like elementary, middle, high school.
high school. Yep.
Okay.
But so you probably, as you say, you probably wouldn't start all those at once though. You probably start out.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like you would at least have to have those. Like if you were gonna do high school, you'd have to have the four there.
Right.
If you were gonna do elementary, you'd have to have what?
Right. You would have to
First through fifth or
first through fourth or fifth. Yeah.
right.
So yeah, you would have to. I don't think you just offer like, or I don't know honestly. I don't know if you can have like a first and second grade only charter
Right.
school.
Right.
That may be a thing. I don't know, or just a senior charter school.
Right.
I don't see why that would be outside the realm of possibility. I honestly haven't really looked at those types of logistics. To tell you the truth,
Have you ever taught at a charter school?
I have not taught at a charter school.
Okay. But what I know a lot of people now are like, it seems like like when I first moved here, or whenever you hear charter, it's like some kind of, I don't know, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it seems like it's something prestigious,
Right.
when you hear the word charter. So what is the difference between, or is it a difference other than the perception in between charter and say private or public?
I was gonna say, I'm not sure of the nuance of the difference in charter and private, really. But I know now, like for instance, in some states like Alabama, charter schools get state funding.
Okay.
So I really don't understand what that's about. What makes them different than a public school if they get state funding?
Right.
I think they still, though, as charter schools, even though they do get some state funding, they still have a little bit more liberty to do some things that a public school can't do.
Right.
So it's kind of like a hybrid now of a private/public school with the funding.
Right.
But I'm not sure how that works, honestly, when you get state funding, why the state doesn't have more say-so in how you run that school
Right. Right.
compared to a public school. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. I'm not sure exactly the nuance, though, initially between a charter school and a private school,
Yeah.
if there were any initially. But as I say, I think it's morphed into something different now as far as the charter school goes.
Right.
As I said,
And you've taught,
middle school, high school, and college.
and which one you like best?
Man, I always go back to Stone, man. That middle school grade, middle grade where they were still, just coming out of elementary school, so still young and impressionable.
Right.
But almost 8th grade, 9th grade, getting ready to try to be grown, but still thirsty for guidance, even though they didn't like it.
Right.
They liked the structure, because I had so many kids come back to me years later and say, you know what, I appreciate what you did for me in 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
They don't like it at the time, but they look back and say, you know what, I can see the love in that.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to correct me, but now I see what it was about, and I appreciate it. So that's why I tell, especially with parents, man, it's like, we're not called to be friends with our kids, man.
Yeah.
They need guidance, direction, and to be molded. We can be friends when you get grown.
So how is that dealing with parents?
It's all over the place, honestly. I mean, you got, as I said, some parents just aren't involved.
Right.
Some parents over involved. Some parents, some parents support the teacher wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Some parents support their kid wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So it's a gamut, man. It could be all over the place.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like when you have parent support, parental support. It just makes for a fortified front to help propel that kid, man.
Yeah.
But when you got to deal with the dynamics of a parent that may or may not be supporting you as a teacher, they can add a little bit of stress.
Yeah.
A little bit of resistance, if you will. That's one. That could be one con. Back to cons.
Right.
When the parents aren't involved, or the parent only sides with or enables their kid, that could make it a turn off for some people, I think.
Right.
But again, I will say, majority of the parents I've dealt with have all been, wholesale, all about their kid, but also support their teacher as far as working together to help ensure, success for the kid.
Right.
So that helps a lot too. If you dealt with contrary parents all the time, that would definitely run you out of the profession.
I can imagine.
For sure.
Yeah. 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 I told my daughter, I was like, look, I'm all for you. I'm gonna support you.
Right.
Now tell me one more time what happened.
Right.
Don't have me go up to the school.
Right.
And what you told me is something different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if
Absolutely.
I go up here clowning with them, and then I found out that
It's really what
that
they
it was
said.
really you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't have me looking like a fool. Let's go over the story one more time before I go up here.
Right.
But yeah, I could definitely see how a parent could be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Man, I don't know if I want to deal with that.
Yeah. It takes, like I said, man, it has to be a calling, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely a calling, but like I said, you have to be called to serve people, man. If you got a heart for people.
Right.
Everybody don't like to deal with different folks, and I get that. It ain't for everybody.
Right.
But if you got that type of personality, that disposition where you like different people and different perspectives, and
Right.
it's one of those professions that would really allow you to thrive in that, for sure.
So, is it any kind of incentive or anything that the schools are looking for more black male teachers?
Incentive.
I mean,
What they're looking for
is it like, schools really out trying to recruit?
Man, I'll tell you what. All I heard before I came to Georgia was black male teachers. They really need.
Right.
And I don't know if I can say I honestly saw that a lot since I've been here. Man, I came here in 2009.
Yeah.
And I know my first teaching assignment is high school, and I started there in January of 2009. And May 2009, they laid me off.
Wow.
And it wasn't like I didn't get a bunch of calls like,
right.
Oh, I see you on the block. Like, we need,
yeah.
All I heard was a lottery, big money for teachers in Georgia, and they really want black male teachers, especially in the sciences. I'm like, well, I'm a hot commodity then, but I didn't really see that, honestly. So I don't know.
Seems like when I was coming out of school, that was, when I go to little job fairs and stuff, it seemed like Georgia and may have been like North Carolina was real heavy trying to recruit teachers.
I know Texas was heavy at one time.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
Texas, Florida too, maybe.
Right, yeah. But that's interesting though.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely need more of them.
Right.
in in our communities.
For sure.
I think it makes I think it helps everybody out.
Right.
I think it's good for young black boys and girls to see that that figure
Right.
in that classroom, somebody that looks like them. And on the flip side, for those of other races, it lets them know that maybe things that they're hearing at the house is not necessarily
Right. When they get to see a black male
Right.
in a different capacity.
right.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we may be some of the first black males they've encountered,
Exactly.
and they can say, "Wow, this ain't what I expected, or what I heard about,
Yeah,
or what I've been seeing on the movies and the news every day."
right.
You know.
So I worked with this girl. She was from somewhere in the Midwest, one of these little small towns. Man, she told me she ain't see a black person until she was like 18.
Wow.
I was like, "What did you do?"
What planet is this?
Right. I was like, "What?"
Wow.
I was like, "Dang."
So imagine if all you've seen is on TV.
Right.
What's
Yeah.
your impression of what black people are?
Right. Yeah.
And it's so powerful, man. That psychology is moldable, man. If all you see is thugging and crack dealing and hooping and rapping,
Right.
then you think every guy you meet, every black person you meet, is supposed to tap dance for you or something.
Right.
Or you got to clutch your purse extra tight
Right.
because that's all you've seen. So
Hmm.
it's programming for sure, man.
Yeah. Man,
Sure.
Chuck, you need your own school, man. One day.
I feel you. I got to pray on them, man. For sure.
One day. What we gotta do? We can get a good run, Chuck.
For sure.
Yeah.
We could definitely give a good round.
Yeah. Even if you just want to do it till you retire.
Man, I'm trying to do that ASAP.
Definitely need it. Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about the Knowing Place,
I don't know in place.
which is your podcast.
Right.
And all platforms, right?
All platforms.
Okay,
Spotify,
so-
Apple Podcasts.
So tell us about that.
So, I love conversation. I love perspectives. And I always have great conversation with my friends, family. I've always, oddly enough, had great conversations with strangers as well. Like, I've always had a disposition where somebody I may not even know may just start talking to me and say, "I don't know why I'm telling you this, but,"
Right.
and just start spilling the beans like about
Right. Just ramble off their whole life story.
about serious personal stuff. So I've always had that type of vibe about me, and so I just started thinking a couple of things. I was like, I talk so much, why not just record some
Right.
of my thoughts and just put them out there?
Yeah.
And I really started the Knowing Place podcast because I wanted to just give people my perspective, which is just a perspective, but a positive perspective as much as possible because we get enough negative, and man, I just started recording, and my first couple of episodes just dealt with my grief journey and losing my wife and how it changed my psychology, and I had to really pay attention to perspective and just try to find positive perspective no matter your circumstances, because
Right.
life is all about perspectives, man. So I just
Absolutely.
wanted to be a platform that you can come to and say, I never thought about it. And I teach that way too. Like, being a scientist, you learn to look at things from 1,000 different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one way to do so. Like you said, it's more than one way to work that math problem.
Right.
Speaking of that, my dad's father was a carpenter.
Okay.
And he was a great mathematician, but he didn't do traditional math. But he would come up with the right figures in his own. You look at it and think it was chicken scratch, but he would have those measurements and those angles. He could build you that brick fireplace or that brick mailbox perfectly. So it's all about perspective and finding your lane, your route, and what works best for you, man. And the only way you can get that sometimes is, as Scripture says, man, you got to seek wise counsel.
Right.
And I always say, man, I might not like a person personally, but I might listen to a perspective they have and get something I can use from it.
Absolutely.
So I don't discount anybody's perspective, from a little kid to a 80-year-old white guy from
Right.
wherever. We don't have to agree personally, but I might hear something you said that give me a view that I never had before that could help me navigate life better.
Right.
So that's the whole podcast is about. I touch on an array of subjects, and I'm open to talk about anything on there. But ultimately, I'm gonna wrap up the conversation with something positive, and try to give it a perspective of whatever the topic is that could maybe help somebody just get along one more day.
Right.
That's the gist of it, man.
Yeah, yeah. And it is about perspective in life and everything. It's just, it's so funny how in life two people can go through the exact same thing, and their reaction to it can be completely different.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
One person can take the same thing that somebody else went through and go on and thrive, where the other person seems to struggle. You know what I mean?
You say it makes you bitter or better.
Right.
You know, some person go through something and knock off a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Another person goes through and write a book and start a master class.
Right.
Same path. I mean, same experiences, but two different
Right.
perspectives and choices based on, again, psychology is heavy, man. Like I don't, that person that goes off the road, and it may sound strange, but I don't judge that person, man, because you don't know what goes on in a person's mind, man. When that mind snap, bro,
Right.
anything goes.
Right.
And we all prone to go off the rails, man. It's just by grace that we just,
Right.
So I don't look at, and I've learned this over time, of course. I can't judge, man, because you never know what's in the mind.
Yeah, that's what I always say. You don't ever know what you would do until you're in that situation.
Exactly. You can talk game about, well, if somebody came in here now,
Right.
Yeah, I hear that, but when they come in here with that heat, what?
Right.
It's different when you're in the mix. So
Yeah.
I'm careful about judging for sure, man.
Yeah. And how often you do it, podcast?
I started out strong, so I started last August.
Yeah, we talking about the consistency.
Yeah,
right?
consistency. From August to December, I did like 12 episodes with maybe like full episodes, and then I maybe had 10 or so mini episodes in between, like little blurbs I would do.
Right.
But man, I haven't done an episode this year yet.
Really?
I haven't done a podcast episode yet this year.
Okay.
And
I was going through some of them. I mean, you did. I guess you was on the run then, because you got quite a few.
I think, I take that back. I think I did one, but what happened was me and one of my colleagues, he was recording a conversation for one of his classes on certain topics.
Yeah.
And I just recorded our audio of our conversation.
Okay.
I did post that as an episode, but I haven't done like an episode myself where I like came up with an idea or had a interest and then went out and done an episode solo.
Right.
But I have posted one episode this year of a recorded conversation on race.
Yeah.
Me and one of my colleagues had. But other than that, man, I don't know. It seems like once we started back full time in class,
Yeah.
I got the pull of my full time career, and I didn't have necessarily I hadn't made the time to really come out with more episodes. But I mean, I still have a lot of things I want to do. I just haven't taken the time.
Yeah. What you think next topic is gonna be?
I really don't know. That's another thing. I don't force it, but
Yeah.
more so than the next topic, I got some people that I'm interested in that I know personally, that are interesting people that I like to just bring on and talk to, kind of like we're doing.
Right.
So I have a friend of mine who's a former professional athlete. I'm trying to get some professional singers, popular singers that I have contacts with, to try to get them on, just to talk to them about life or whatever they want to talk about.
Right.
No agendas.
Yeah.
No gossipy stuff, just whatever they want to talk about.
Right.
And I want to have entrepreneurs, whoever. I'm just open to talk to people, man. That's it. I'm trying to get perspective too from these people.
Yeah.
And I think people will find it interesting as well. So I really don't have a topic per se that I'm interested in jumping on next. More so than
people's journey is interesting, man.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It is. I think we find more commonality with each other once we start talking to each other. That we can see that we all deal with a lot of the same things, man.
Right.
Just with life in general. So
yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been really, really therapeutic, really cathartic for me to not only put my thoughts out.
Yeah.
But it takes some vulnerability, man, to just share your inner thoughts with people and put yourself out there for ridicule or whatever.
Right.
But I welcome it. Like, if I always say on my podcast, if you got a complaint or you got if you want to give me some type of feedback or criticism, whatever, by all means, hit me up and let me know. If you didn't like it, tell me. If you loved it, tell me. Whatever. So I'm open to that. We just grow that way.
Right.
So don't take anything
So
personally.
you say you started it with the unfortunate death of your wife.
Right.
What is like some things that maybe you learned? 'Cause I think when we go through that, we like learn something.
For sure.
'Cause I know I learned some things with the death of my father, but I know that I can only imagine a spouse. That's like completely to me, that's something completely different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Then, you know, like you expect that sometime that you know, your parents,
Right.
you know, if you know, real about it,
Right.
you know, but you really don't, you know, when you marry somebody, you expect to live a long life with them. You know what I mean? And you know, you still young.
Right.
So is it anything in particular that you like, any revelations or
So many, man.
really?
So many. One revelation is that I realized, man, the things you think you don't like about your loved one don't even matter.
Yeah.
If you love them for real, those little things they get on your nerves with are things that you miss if they ain't here no more. And you realize, you know what? When you hear and you assuming they gonna always be here, it's getting on your nerves. When they
Right.
ain't here no more, you wish they were here to do that because it's proof they alive.
Yeah.
And you really realize, you know what? Them 3 hours I spent not talking to you, I should have been right up under you because I love you. Like, you take the good along with the bad
Right.
if you love that person. And so I always say, man, like, just, it's easy to take for granted, like you said, life, man. Well, one important perspective I got too was I saw that with my wife, she had a cancer battle. Well, I say chemo battle, wasn't cancer battle, chemo radiation battle.
So what do you mean by that?
Man,
the
the
chemo was
treatment
doing
worse
more
than,
than
yeah,
the
the
okay.
treatment worse than the disease, if you ask me.
Okay.
But so with that, with her treatments, if I'm honest, man, the threat of death was always in the back of my mind. If you keep it real, like you said, there's always a chance that with these treatments and just the nature of the illness, death is always a possibility. But heck, death is always a possibility for me too.
Right.
But of course, you can see where it could be greater considering the circumstances. But it made me could think about, what about that guy whose wife running down to the store to grab some hamburger buns and don't make it back?
Right.
That's different. You ain't expecting your wife not to come back home from going to the store.
Right.
Whereas if your wife going through chemo and radiation, you like, man, this chemo could zap her today, or she could have a stroke or a heart attack.
You got time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got time to really say, you know what? We in a serious situation, and death is always a threat. Whereas, like I said, if your wife running an errand, going to the mall and getting a car wreck on the way back, you wasn't expecting her not to make it home. That's a different kind of.
Right.
I can't imagine losing my wife or have somebody losing a wife that way. Totally unexpected.
So sudden. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I don't know. I feel that's even worse than the way I lost my wife.
Yeah.
So it gives you that perspective. Like, it could have been worse, bro. You could have lost her on vacation.
Right.
In a swimming accident or robbery or something crazy, and y'all trying to kick it and have a good time. And
right.
So that's a totally different, so it really showed me, man, that it could always be worse, even in the loss of.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that's the exact same way for good or bad terminology, rationalize.
That's good.
Dealing with my father's death.
Right.
I was like, look, man, he was here long enough to give you everything that you needed.
Facts.
It could have been when I was 12.
Right.
Could have been when I was 8. Could have been when I was 5. You know what I mean? So it could have been the age I didn't even remember.
Right.
Him. You know what I mean? Now, so, he got to see my first daughter.
Right.
My firstborn. Got to meet her, spend some time with her. You know what I mean? So, that's how I looked at it. Like, although he's not here, he did his job.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So that gave me a little bit more peace than when I started looking at, like you say, how it could have been.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I say, it's that perspective. Somebody else could go through the exact same thing and just not realize that, or, just go on and, just not, I don't want to say not recover from it, but in a way, some people never really go on and live their life to the fullest. And that's another thing too. I realized life is short.
Extra.
Life is, because I was working a corporate job when he died. And after that, shortly after that, I was like, man, I'm gonna go on and do some things that that's gonna be fulfilling toward
for sure
that I want to do. You know what I mean? Now, when my second daughter was born. I mean, it's certain things that happen that I like. Dang, this would be a trip if he was here. I wonder what, like, when Obama became president. I was like, dang, I wonder how he, what would be his take on that, or like when 9/11 happened, or stuff like that. But overall, I think the main grief for most of us should just be that we miss him.
Right.
You know what I mean? He wasn't the type of person to tell you that, he loved you, but by action you knew that he did.
Right, for sure.
You know what I mean? And that's like I was asking you with like some things that you may do different coming up in teaching, like that was one thing that I said that I was going to do with my kids. I always tell them I love them. You know what I mean? Although, like I said, I never felt unloved, but I also wanted the words to be there as well.
Right.
And another thing is that I also learned to not hold any grudges with anybody. You know what I mean? Because at the time when he passed, if it would have been a grudge, you can only imagine how.
Right.
Knowing that you had the chance to make things right.
Back to that petty stuff I was talking, you would have looked at that like that was
right.
It
And that's
wasn't
what I try to
not talking to my dad the last whatever.
And that's what I tell people all the time. I think that one of the lessons that also comes with losing somebody is just like you were saying, realizing what's important and what's really not important.
For
you know
sure.
what I mean? It ain't really that. To me, if you got an issue with me, that's gonna be on your end. Because I'm gonna do everything that I can, even if it's a situation where I can't fix a relationship. As long as I know, and I'm being real with myself, that I did everything possible that I could, then I'm at peace with it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a good perspective.
Yeah, then I'm at peace with it.
And like you were saying too, man, when you put the backdrop of your dad against a kid that ain't never known his dad.
Right.
I'm not saying that make it you losing your dad better for you, but it can humble you to a place to say, you know what? At least I had my dad for this many years, and he was able to impart and pour into me.
Right.
What about that kid that never met his dad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Never had a dad.
Right.
You know?
Right. Or had a bad relationship.
Or had a terrible relationship.
Yeah.
So it puts things in perspective for you in that sense, man. They say it could always have been worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it keeps you humble that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So, like I said, my dad will be 79 this year. And we, like you said, we always think about the possibility of losing our parents, but as I said, me and my dad didn't say I love you until I was well into my probably 40s.
Right.
So I'll be 51 in May, so.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to what you were saying about the generation that they come from.
I was going to say, yeah, so. But I never felt unloved. I know my dad always loved me.
Right.
Always provided with vacation and laughs and store, whatever. I never felt like, oh, my dad don't love me because he don't say it.
Right.
But we didn't verbally start until relatively recently.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing.
I remember growing up, man, in Huntsville. You remember, did you know Mike Harrison?
Yeah, for sure. I know Mike.
Mike, man, I saw his dad one time. Like, we were teenagers. Like, his dad kissed him in the mouth, like, one time. You know what I mean? And I ain't think it was weird or nothing. I was like, dang, that's cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, your dad, he don't care nothing about your homeboys or whatever.
Right.
He love you enough to, show affection.
Right.
It's one thing to show affection toward, your daughters. That's natural. But toward your son like that.
Right.
I was like, dang.
Yeah, that's heavy.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, for real. Like, that's something that, I think that we need more of without it being, weird or,
right.
Some trying to add some extra onto it that doesn't, is improper or whatever else.
Right.
You love your kids. You love your kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And back to what I was saying too about parenting, man. Speaking of parent-child relationship, as I said, man, I tell my son, like, bro, when you get grown, we can hang out and kick it then. We can be boys
right now.
Yeah, right. Until you get grown, man. My job as a parent is to guide you and direct you, not for us to be the best of friends. Now he's 21 now, so it's getting to be that point where we can almost kind of hang out some,
Right.
But you don't have to be friends with your kid. I'm not saying abuse them and be mean to them. I'm simply saying, you see people say, "Oh, this is my best friend, my daughter, my little girl, my son." I'm like, no, that's and that trickles over into the school sometime where they look at you like, "Oh, Mr. Smith, you can be my, we can be boys." Like, no, we can't. We ain't.
Right.
I'm an authority figure, but I'm not gonna walk around like I'm the guy, like cracking the whip. But we are not peers.
Right.
And you need to know that kids need to have that structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they don't, you see a lot of stuff you see today. No respect for elderly people. No respect for adults. Man, kids talk any kind of way around adults nowadays. I don't know about you, but man, if I came around grown folks when I was coming up, whether I know you or not, I'm cutting off the cussing, bro.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's grown people right here. Chill. Everybody,
Right.
Wasn't no wilding out and being disrespectful to anybody adult, whether you know them or not. Now it's like, they're like you ain't even around. And the conversation just like, they at a party solo. It's like, and I think they're oblivious to it, man. I think it's just the conditioning.
Yeah.
A
lot of them are oblivious. They come in here and you be like, "Hey, man," they be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry."
Right.
Like, bro, you ain't see the woman here,
right?
The little kids in here,
right?
Man, it's wild.
Different times, man.
Yeah.
We probably sound like our parents right now. They probably used to look at us and be like, "These kids nowadays."
I hope not. But it's funny you mentioned that because I still. You say how old are you? 50?
I'm 50 now. I'll be 51 in May.
So I'll make 50 next year. But I still feel like I'm.
Yeah.
16, I still feel like I'm 16. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I feel like as far as what's going on, like I still got it.
Right.
But when I get around these young boys,
bruh,
I'm like, man, what are you talking about?
It's different, bro. It's way different.
And I know you in the school, so you probably hear it all the time.
It's different. So I pay attention though. So I'm like, I just try to understand, man. And like I got a good rapport with all my students, but I'll put them to the side, like, man, what is this? What is y'all on? Like, what does this mean? Or just different sayings they have and slang and
right.
It's different, man. But I will say though, I think, and I thought about this the other day too, but generationally speaking, I do think kids nowadays are getting more and more, I ain't gonna say colorblind, but more tolerant. There's more tolerance as the generations go on. I think of course there's always gonna be racism and prejudice, but
right,
and bigotry, but I feel like it's becoming less and less with the younger generations to a degree. Maybe not so much in the South, because the South is pretty much a hub, if you will,
right,
and has always been a central location, if you will, for a lot of bigotry, racism. It's kind of ingrained, of course, the whole United States really, but the South seems to be Deep South is like
weird on the sleeve,
birthing, where it was birthed, kind of, it seems. But I don't know. I feel like these generations that are coming along, man, are getting further and further away from the strict racial divide, because it's coming less and less cool to be, or at least on face value, racist or
right,
prejudiced towards certain groups for certain lifestyles or certain beliefs or certain whatever. I think it's getting less and less tolerated.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That cancel culture is rough.
Right. Yeah.
That get you up out of here.
You lose your livelihood behind it
with
now
the quick.
If you're not careful.
And I don't know. I feel like a lot of times, for instance, a lot of companies may say, "Well, we're parting ways with this employee because they were this." I think a lot of times they do that publicly, whether or not they really believe that.
What's business?
Right. On the business side, we gotta show that.
Right. It's not because they don't necessarily believe it. Right. They more than anything, it's like we don't want the headache.
And we don't want to hurt our bottom line.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a transition happening slowly. I don't know if I want to say things are getting better, but I think they're changing as far as I said, race and
right,
sexism and colorism and other isms go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, man, it was good talking to you, Chuck.
Oh, always, man.
We need to do this more often.
Always good therapy, man.
Yeah, and I'll be on the Knowing Place.
For sure. And as, you know, we as men, man, we don't communicate enough with each other like this. I don't know if you watched I forget what podcast it was with the NFL guys.
Oh, that's my
Brandon.
I'm athlete.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah,
they
that's a
talk
good
about
show.
how we just gotta talk more, man, and be more transparent and
Right.
stop trying to be tough all the time and act like everything good when everything ain't good all the time.
Right.
And so we got to be able to be vulnerable with each other and say not be a thing. Like you said, Mike and his dad's relationship.
Right.
It don't have to be weird because we share together or cry together or say, man, I need to rap with you, or let's come ride with me, or I come scoop you because I know you're going through. Let me come get you and let's just go get something to eat because I know you're going through and just need maybe just to sit, you know?
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. It ain't got to be weird or, you know?
Yeah.
So we got to do that more for sure. Man.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. This wraps up. What's the name of this? We the Blueprint.
With the blueprint. Y'all
It's
the
been a
Blueprint.
minute. Tim been gone and he threw me off, man. I don't know what's the name of the show is.
Yeah, and you know, Ant just took off on me on the. I get half the cash from my little interview. It's all good, Ant.
Yeah. We the Blueprint. I always forget to say this. Like, subscribe, share. We are the Blueprint. We're trying to get our subscribers up. So please, I'm gonna have to beg y'all, please subscribe. And we're gonna keep bringing y'all more content. LegacyOverLust.com.